You and I don't quite get locked in on soccer. A lot of people help educate us on soccer, the idea of a super league. And we're not going to talk about it from a soccer standpoint. We're going to talk about it from an NFL standpoint because we view the NFL as it is, as a super league, right? There is no other level to the super league. The NFL is a super league.
Well, to me, it's the only sport right now in America, team sport, where you could throw any matchup on Thursday night, let alone Sunday night or Monday night, and do enormous ratings. And that speaks to the power of the league. Like, there is a reason for the last couple decades, the majority of Sunday night baseball games involve the Yankee or the Red Sox because they move the needle nationally, unlike other teams. Like the San Francisco Giants don't move the needle nationally once Barry Bonds left. Even the Dodgers. I mean, you could talk. They would maybe be in a little different category, but the Cardinals. I mean, these are massive brands. I mean, the Cardinals. Who would they be the equivalent of in football? Like the Packers.
Yeah.
You know, you can just ride the Green Bay. If Sunday night, if I told the NBC executives, 17 weeks, you're gonna have to show every Packer game, like they'd think about it and be like, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like under no circumstances, if I just said, hey, you're going to show every Sunday night baseball game is just going to be who the Cardinals play that night. That would not be cool. That would not be okay. Now, the difference is soccer is a little like baseball in the sense of there's no cap. So Manchester United, I don't know that much about this. I think they led the charge on this, and I just saw their guy's already out. They fired the guy, or he resigned, who led the charge on the Super League. I don't think
this is like an episode of Succession, basically.
But I don't think the Super League, he might just be a little ahead of his time. Like, ultimately, this is where things are going. I believe in the NBA and baseball, which they already kind of are. And the NBA's made a killing off, historically, they're struggling now, of just riding the Lakers, you know, the big brands with the star players, right? LeBron, the Warriors the last 5 or 6 years. That's what they do anyway. Now, they basically subsidize the league, right?
Yes, I do. Baseball, they're all a little unique, right? Baseball, from a local standpoint, is such a strong sport. There's just not a lot of things you throw on in a market locally that gets that many people to watch consistently every night, right?
True.
It's just It's just baseball's really unique in that way, and so it makes it a little more valuable. Although if you don't rate in your local market, then it makes you less valuable. But look, there was kind of a salary cap, but whatever. To me, football is the great example of if you're good enough in football, if the Browns are good, if the Texans are good, if the Arizona Cardinals are good, if the Giants are good or the Cowboys are good, you're never going to be the Cowboys or the Giants. But nationally, you can be a very strong, powerful brand. I do think, what's the perfect number of teams? 28? I think college football is a great conversation point here, right? College football has, in a given year, I think last year was 127 teams. That's low. Usually it's more. That would be the league you could go Super League in, right? Fox would tell us, yeah, give us Ohio State, give us Michigan. CBS would be like, give us Alabama, or ESPN now, I guess. Give us the SEC. Give us Oklahoma. Give us USC, right? I mean,
Oregon.
you could put together college football Super League
Easily.
like that.
Yeah.
We talk about it. You have the Power Five, and even that could get pared down.
Where I think football is really unique is I saw Schefter a couple weeks ago tweeted or Instagrammed that the schedule release will be after the draft. And the schedule release now with the flexible schedules, even if you get 4 or 5 primetime games, we know that is, subject to change, right? This year, for the first time, I think Monday Night Football is going to be flexible late in the season. Obviously, Sunday night has been for a long period of time. But it does give you a pretty good glimpse going into the season what the league views as the best teams.
Right.
The Browns are a great example. For the last couple decades, they have been a joke. They did not move. They were an awful franchise. One season, they go to the playoffs, they win a game. If you had to guess, of the 17 games, 3, 4 primetime games, just when the schedule release comes out, a Monday night, maybe a couple Sunday nights.
I think you and I talked about this the other day. Didn't we look at their schedule and say they've got, I think the number we determined was 3 or 4 games you would not want on TV. The rest of them you'd want on TV.
You're saying for the Browns.
For the Browns, based on their opponents, there's 4 games they don't want. The rest of them you'd want. If I were you can't put them all on, but
But think how fast that changes. Like in basketball, the Suns are great. The Suns have been irrelevant for the last decade, right? They maybe they're rating this year locally, but if you put them on nationally, people aren't going to watch. And that's the thing. Immediately, the Browns, me, you, I don't care about the Browns at all. Besides, like, I'm a football guy. I like keeping up with the league. Like, I will watch if they're good. I'm watching.
Yeah.
And if you give me a Sunday night, like, if you told me opening Sunday Night Football, Browns Ravens, I'd be like, yeah, that's a big game, right? I mean, they could easily do that, right? At Cleveland, Sunday Night Football, Browns Ravens. I'd be like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Would it shock you if that's just opening weekend, Browns Ravens, Sunday Night Football?
It would work.
100%.
It would shock me a little bit. It would shock me a little bit.
It's a little bit of a stretch, but I do think if you put it in Cleveland, the buzz with Lamar Jackson, it's an easy sell, right? Baker versus Lamar.
Yeah, you wouldn't get the ratings from that game and go, should have gone with somebody else. That's not what would happen. You'd go.
Where I do think soccer parallels probably the NFL a little bit is like they're premium brands. Manchester United. I mean, I'm not a soccer aficionado. Yeah, Chelsea.
Leeds.
I think they've jumped back into it. The way it was described to me by someone with the 49ers, he's like, think about the Raiders, how they've been a sleeping giant forever. And if they're good, like they can move the needle. That's what we thought Leeds were. That's why we got in the business. And what Leeds has been good. And they they made it to the Premier League.
People keep sending us messages about Leeds.
So I do think that like the NFL, the Cowboys are probably the best example because they've been consistently average to below and they move the needle. But I think you could put like the Packers can have a down year and they'll move the needle. The Steelers, there are 3 or 4 just brands that like the Packers and the Steelers are good examples. They are not in top 10 markets. Obviously the Packers definitely are not, but Pittsburgh relative to like some of the major markets in America. I have seen the power of both those two brands at the Niners and the Raiders. And when I worked in the NFL, just away games, like their fan bases are massive. And then you just go, well, they've been good. The Steelers have been good for 50 years. The Packers have been good now for 30. Like, yeah, when you're good for a long period of time, you accumulate more fans. Like we always say it's a pretty easy formula. And soccer's the same way. You can be shitty and then you get good like Leeds, or then you get good like Man City a couple years ago when they hired Pep, and all of a sudden you just gain way more fans. The Warriors are the best example. I've lived in Northern California beside going to college or moving to Philly a little time, but the majority of my life, the Warriors during that time were really, they get this, we had a passionate, you guys were pretty niche-y. Like you guys had this the group was small.
Yeah, the signature team was fun, but not good. Right.
And not that nationally relevant. I remember Shaq went on TV and was like, thought they played in San Francisco. He had no fucking clue. And they were so irrelevant that you wouldn't have that much of a clue, especially if you weren't a California or Northern California guy. You always stayed in the city. You came over on the bus. You're not even paying attention. But he realized once he started going to finals game and once it became so big, but they won for 5 years and they became a big deal. Winning, and I think the pushback on the Super League probably in soccer is like, you don't necessarily need it.
Here's the other thing, though. I do wonder, their money, their money's humongous, right? The soccer money is
But isn't football money
massive.
enormous now?
Football money's enormous, too. But I do wonder if you got to a point, I mean, we are at that point, but if you had 10 Jerry Joneses, right, if there would be just some unrest, like, I do so much, we do so much, I do so much, why am I sharing this? Now, the counter is like, well, you're sharing it because you don't have to play on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, and because we've built this league up so much, Browns and Texans can play, and you're still going to make money off that game.
But isn't that potentially inevitable in football? I think there is a generational gap where there's a respect level that if you're the Rooneys, if you're the Maras, even if you go, when we're good, we really carry the league for a couple years and get the rating so high that like the Bengals, some of the Jags, they have nothing in common. The Arizona Cardinals have nothing in common with our ability to carry the league ratings wise when we're good. But for the health of the league, this is a partnership. We're all in this together. We get somewhat carried. If we have a down year, we get it. That's how the older generation thinks. Our generation, and AKA their kids, who are older than us, a lot of people in the NFL, a little less loyal, a little more like Jerry is somewhat of an outlier for his generation, the way he thinks. Do you know that he negotiated a special jersey deal, like they split the jersey sale. Someone forwarded me this a long time ago. One, like every team gets a piece, 132nd. He gets his own, or maybe it's 131st because Jerry gets 100% of the profits
of Cowboy
of his
sales.
Yeah, because he goes, well, I'm selling
Sales.
exponentially more than like 7 teams combined, yet I'm splitting it.
I
And
do
he
think
fought
it'll
for that a long time ago.
I do think it'll change as the owners change over, and it takes such extreme wealth to buy into the league that the people who buy in are not going to be there to buy in and then take a back seat and watch their team go away. Like, it will be fun money. It is not going to be necessary. I mean, you're going to be making money because you're in the NFL, but you're buying it because this is the fun that you want to have, right? Like Steve Ballmer.
Well, isn't Tepper a good example?
Tepper's
He
a
just
great
paid
example.
$2.4 billion. Like, he doesn't want to be like, David, you're new here. Yeah, I paid way more than all of you guys, and I viewed this as someone that buys at a condo and you're in a complex with people that rent. You can feel, again, way lower, but it's just, you just go, well, I spent the most in a complex. If you buy a house in a neighborhood, like, I don't view ourselves as equal. Like, you bought this house 10 years ago for $100,000. I buy this house 10 years later for $1 million. Yet we all hand in hand in the community. Like, I feel I'm more involved in this than you. It's human nature when you spend so much money and you go, this guy's profiting, but his entry point was nowhere near mine.
Right. Yeah. The other thing is it's really the argument as the world changes.
That's why they don't sell to randoms, though, right? They don't.
Yes, because they get to approve who comes into the club. Absolutely. This is part of the argument why you don't expand either, because your home market ticket sales, while significant, are dwarfed by your television revenues, and you don't need 40 teams to get on TV to play all day Sunday, right? They got enough teams to play all day Sunday. Right? Now, would you want to go 60 teams so you could play every day of the week and teams alternate bye weeks and you could just, double your inventory? Yeah, okay.
Possible to dilute your product, though.
Absolutely,
right?
It is. Like, it's always
I noticed that with soccer sometimes. Like, on a Saturday morning, I get up, and if you get up, it's crazy. The older you get, you can't sleep in. I used to be a diehard sleep in guy. If you just get up at like 7 a.m. on Saturday and there are no sports on, really, right? No American sports at that time. There's like the European tour. But if you go to NBC Sports Network or whatever, they play a lot of EPL. And you notice, like, there'll be Manchester United playing a team a non-soccer guy. I don't know who they're playing. And I wonder, because there's so many teams over there where if you know it, you're like, oh, we're going to kick their asses to nobody. The NFL doesn't really. You're going to have bad teams, but at any moment, the Bengals in a year could be really good, right? And be a playoff team.
But you're looking at it from across the right. If you're living on the other side of the world, you might turn on and not know a lot about whoever, an American football team, right? Like,
my point is there are way more teams over there than there are. Like, the football team is a pretty finite set number, hasn't really changed in a long time.
I would not change that number if I were the NFL.
Yeah. Because you could justify,
short-term game.
Why don't we add 10 more teams and just kind of expand the league, right? But I do think you would have a law of diminishing returns.
I think so.
Quarterback play shitty.
There's only 15 of them as it is, 12 of them as it is.
Because wouldn't you say that basketball is a good example of that? Like, let's keep expanding. It's like, I watch. You can tell me there's never been more talent. I think these games are pretty bad right now.
I would not do that either. I'm with you. Even though Seattle does deserve a team.